His Divine Graces Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Samstapakacharya Seva, the whole world Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad bhagavatam ki jai. Nitai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottama Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, entitled The Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 9, Answers by Citing the Lord's Version, Text 33. aham, evāsam, evāgre, aham evāsam evāgre, aham evāsam evāgre, nānyad, sad-asat, param, nānyad sad-asat param, nānyad sad-asat param, paścād, aham, yad, etac, paścād aham yad etac, paścād aham yad etac, yo vaśiṣyeta, sosmi aham, yo vaśiṣyeta sosmi aham, yo vaśiṣyeta sosmi aham, aham evāsam evāgre, nānyad sad-asat param, paścād aham yad etac, yo vaśiṣyeta sosmi aham, aham evāsam evāgre, nānyad sad-asat param, paścād aham yad etac, yo vaśiṣyeta sosmi aham, aham evāsam evāgre, nānyad sad-asat param, paścād aham yad etac, yo vaśiṣyeta sosmi aham, aham evāsam evāgre, nānyad sad-asat param, paścād aham yad etac, yo vaśiṣyeta sosmi aham,
aham evāsam evāgre,
aham evāsam evāgre, nānyad sad-asat param, paścād aham yad etac, yo vaśiṣyeta sosmi aham, aham evāsam evāgre, nānyad sad-asat param, paścād aham yad etac, yo vaśiṣyeta sosmi aham, aham, I, the personality of Godhead, eva, certainly, āsam, existed, eva, only, agre, before the creation, na, never, anyat, anything else, yad, all those, sad, the effect, asat, the cause, param, the supreme, paścād, at the end, aham, I, the personality of Godhead, yet all these, etat, creation, cha, also, yaha, everything, avaśiṣyeta, remains, saha, that, asmi, I am, aham, I, the personality of Godhead. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself, nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. Please repeat the translation. Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself, nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. Continue to read the purport. the 7th paragraph. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the paragraph beginning with in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. That's the only paragraph that quotes the Brihadaranyaka. This is the 7th paragraph in the purport. After these 3 quotations, then there is an impersonalist, then the Brahmā. Yes. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 1.4.1, there is the hymn, Atmai Vedam Agra Asit Purusha Vidhaha. This mantra indicates the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna, even before the appearance of the Purusha incarnation. In the Bhagavad Gita 15.18, it is said that Lord Krishna is Purushottama because he is a supreme Purusha, transcendental even to the Purusha Akshara and the Purusha Kshara. The Akshara Purusha or the Mahavishnu throws his glance over Prakriti or material nature, but a Purushottama existed even before that. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad therefore confirms the statement of the Bhagavad Gita that Lord Krishna is the supreme person, Purushottama. In some of the Vedas, it is also said that in the beginning only the impersonal Brahman existed. However, according to this verse, the impersonal Brahman, which is the glowing effulgence of the body of the Supreme Lord, may be called the immediate cause. But the cause of all causes, or the remote cause, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord's impersonal feature is existent in the material world because by material senses or material eyes, the Lord cannot be seen or perceived. One has to spiritualize the senses before one can expect to see or perceive the Supreme Lord. But He is always engaged in His personal capacity and He is eternally visible to the inhabitants of Vaikuntha Loka, eye to eye. Therefore, He is materially impersonal, just as the executive head of the state may be impersonal with government offices, although He is not impersonal in the government house. Similarly, the Lord is not impersonal in His abode, which is always nirasta kuhakam, as stated in the very beginning of the Bhagavatam. Therefore, both the impersonal and personal features of the Lord are acceptable as mentioned in the revealed scriptures. This personality of Godhead is very emphatically explained in the Bhagavad Gita in connection with the verse Brahmano hi pratishtha aham, Bhagavad Gita 14.27. Therefore, in all ways, the confidential part of spiritual knowledge is realization of the personality of Godhead and not his impersonal Brahman feature. One should therefore have his ultimate aim of realization not in the impersonal feature but in the personal feature of the absolute truth. The example of the sky within the pot and the sky outside the pot may be helpful to the student for his realization of the all-pervading quality of the cosmic consciousness of the absolute truth. But that does not mean that the individual part and parcel of the Lord becomes the Lord by a false claim. It means only that the conditioned soul is a victim of the illusory energy in her lust snare. To claim to be one with the cosmic consciousness of the Lord is a last trap set by the illusory energy of the enemy Maya. Even in the impersonal existence of the Lord, as it is in the material creation, one should aspire for personal realization of the Lord, and that is the meaning of paścād aham etac avaśiṣyeta asmi aham. Brahmā also accepted the same truth when he was instructing Narada. He said, Soyam te bhitastata bhagavan vishwabhavanaha. Bhagavatam 2nd Canto 7th chapter 58th verse. There is no other cause of all causes than the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari. Therefore, this verse, aham never indicates anything other than the Supreme Lord, and one should therefore follow the path of the Brahma Sampradaya or the path from Brahmā to Narada to Vyasadeva, etc., and make it a point in life to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari or Lord Krishna. This very confidential instruction to the pure devotees of the Lord was also given to Arjuna and to Brahma in the beginning of the creation. The demigods like Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, Indra, Chandra and Varuna are undoubtedly different forms of Lord for execution of different functions. The different elemental ingredients of material creation as well as the multifarious energies also may be of the same personality of Godhead, but the root of all of them is the Supreme Personality of God, Sri Krishna. One should be attached to the root of everything rather than bewildered by the branches and leaves. That is the instruction given in this verse. Thus ends the Bhakti-vedanta purport. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu-padaya Krishna-preshnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-vedanta Swami-niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi paścād Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Srivasadi Gauravakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we concluded the reading the purport of this verse, this 33rd verse of the 9th chapter of the 2nd canto, the first verse of the Chatushloki Bhagavatam. Now the background for this verse, I just remind you, in the 31st and the 32nd verses, that Krishna is telling Brahma that knowledge about me as described in the scriptures is very confidential. Jnanam parama bhushyam me, very confidential. Yet vijnana samanvitam, and it has to be realized in conjunction with devotional service. And Krishna is also telling the necessary paraphernalia for the process is being explained by me, you may take it up fully. So, this confidential knowledge about the personality of Godhead is being given by the Lord Himself to Brahma at the beginning of the creation. And specifically, that knowledge about the Supreme Lord has got different personal features, which is indicated in the 32nd verse. All of me namely my actual eternal form, yet rupa, guna, qualities, karmakaha, activities, and tattva vijnanam, let all be awakened within you by factual realization, not a allegorical description, not some imaginary description, not some analogy, but tattva vijnanam, the factual realization. Let it be awakened within you, astute madanugrahat, by my causeless mercy. So, it is necessary to adopt the method of devotional service to realize the very confidential knowledge of the personality of Godhead. And it happens by the mercy of the Lord upon the devotee. Now, that knowledge of the personality of Godhead begins with this understanding that in His personal feature, the Lord existed before the creation. He remains during the creation, and He also remains after the entire creation is completely destroyed. And it is only He who was there, and only He who remains, and only He who is the background for the entire creation during His existence. So, this 33rd verse, which I am discussing now, is particularly indicating the person and not his impersonal feature, the Brahma Jyoti or the Brahman effulgence. Now, to refute the impersonalist claim that this verse is talking about some impersonal feature beyond some person. This is what the Mayavadis say. Yes, Krishna is there, but beyond Krishna there is impersonal Brahman. That's what the Mayavadis say. But that is not correct. The claim is not correct. Because, as Prabhupada has explained in this purport very elaborately, this support of the Upanishads and the Bhagavatam itself in other places is there to understand that it is the person who is ultimately there beyond even the Brahma Jyoti and not the other way around. So, Prabhupada is quoting from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. See, the Upanishads are the philosophical basis for understanding the absolute truth. So, in the Upanishads, it is said, in this particular Upanishad, it is said, Atmai Vedam Agra Asi Purusha Vidaha. What does this mean? The Supreme Personality of Godhead existed even before the appearance of the Purusha incarnation. We know that the Purusha incarnation glances over material nature and material nature begins to develop into this entire creation. So, if the Purusha incarnation is the cause of this material creation by glancing over material nature, and if the Supreme Lord as Krishna existed even before the appearance of the Purusha incarnation, then that means Krishna is the ultimate cause even of the Purusha incarnation. And this is explained in the Bhagavad Gita also, in the 15th chapter, called the Purushottama Yoga, the Yoga of the Supreme Person. There Krishna explains there is Kshara and Akshara Purusha. Kshara is the living entity who is fallible, who is subject to fall down, who is subject to some defect, who is subject to some influence of Maya. But Akshara is, Akshara Purusha, as is explained here, is the Lord Mahavishnu, who is not subject to the influence of Maya, who never falls down, who is eternally transcendental. So, the Akshara Purusha, Mahavishnu, and the Kshara Purusha, the living entities, transcendental to both of them. Yasmat Ksharam Atitoham Akshāradapi Cha Uttamaha. The 18th verse of the 15th chapter, the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, I am transcendental to the living entities in this world. I am also transcendental to the Akshara Purusha, Mahavishnu. Because in this world, there are two Purushas that we can experience or know, even in our heart. I am seated in my heart, and the Lord as Paramatma is seated in my heart. I am Kshara, the Lord is Akshara. I am fallible, Lord is infallible. I am dependent, Lord is the maintainer, as Paramatma. But in the 15th chapter, Krishna explains his position. What is his position? He is transcendental to both me and to the Paramatma. That Paramatma is the same as the Vishnu who glances over this creation at the beginning of this creation. Glances over material nature at the beginning of creation. So, the Brahmā Upanishad confirms this statement of the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna is the Supreme Person, the Purushottama, beyond even the Akshara Purusha. So this is the position of Krishna. He is transcendental to everyone and everything. So in the Vedas also, even though it is said that before the creation, in the beginning, there was only the impersonal Brahman. Some place in the Vedas it is said. Now, what is this impersonal Brahman? Of course, the impersonal Brahman is the absolute truth. But the impersonal Brahman has got a cause beyond itself. That is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, Brahmano hi pratishtaham. That even the impersonal Brahman is the expansion or the personal rays, the glow of the personality of Godhead Krishna. Krishna's body is spiritual and it has got spiritual effulgence. And that spiritual effulgence is nothing but the Brahma Jyoti or the Brahma, impersonal Brahma. So, the material world, we cannot see the form of Krishna who is in the spiritual world, in the Vaikuntha Loka, because the material world is covered by the impersonal Brahma Jyoti. The dazzling effulgence of the Lord is covering our vision. So what we can see or perceive is only the Brahman or the Brahma Jyoti. That also, if we are able to transcend the influence of the material energy. We got two coverings because of which we cannot see Krishna. One is the material covering, which is the Mahat Tattva. Everything is materially covered. Like we cannot see our own selves. I am inside this body, you are inside your body. I cannot see even your spiritual soul. I cannot see my own soul. Why? Because material covering. So if I remove the material covering, then I can see myself or I can see you. Maybe I can see the Brahma Jyoti. The Brahma Jyoti. But there is a covering, a spiritual covering for Krishna, the Supreme Person. What is that covering? Yogamaya. Nānyad prakāsha sarvasya yogamaya samāvadaha. Even those who can see the self or the super soul, The super soul also cannot be perceived as the supreme person till one becomes a devotee. How is super soul seen? By those who are not devotees, seen as the Brahman, Brahma Jyoti. The super soul is seen as the Brahma Jyoti by those who are not devotees. So that super soul, as Brahma Jyoti, may be the person who is not a devotee can see. But to see Krishna, we have to go beyond the Brahma Jyoti. Because the Brahma Jyoti is the dazzling effulgence which is covering Krishna from our vision. Yoga Maya Samavrataha. This Yoga Maya is nothing but the bodily effulgence or the Brahma Jyoti which is covering Krishna. So, it is said here by Prabhupada that we have to spiritualize our senses before we can see the Supreme Lord. We have to spiritualize our senses. How do we spiritualize our senses? How can we do it? By devotional service. Which is the verse which explains that? Rishikena, Rishikesh Sevanam Bhakti Ruchita. There is a definition of what is bhakti. That also does not explain. Ata Shri Krishna Namadi Na Bhavet Grahyam Indriyaihi. You cannot see Krishna, you cannot perceive his qualities, transcendental qualities, or his name, or his pastimes with his blunt material senses. But Sevor Mukhehi Jigvado, when you spiritualize your senses by devotional service, then you can see him. Then he will reveal himself to you. Swayam eva spuratyataha. Krishna reveals to you his form, his qualities, his name, everything, when you spiritualize your senses by performing devotional service. So Prabhupada says here, when you spiritualize your senses, you can see him. But he is always engaged in his personal capacity and is eternally visible to the inhabitants of the Vaikuntha Loka. There's another world where devotees are always engaged in devotional service and they are able to see the Lord directly with their spiritualized senses. In that Vaikuntha Loka is always visible. But that Supreme Lord from Vaikuntha, sometimes he comes to this material world and becomes visible as an incarnation. That is incarnation. Incarnation sometimes appears in this world. Krishna, Rama, Narasimha, Vamana. Sometimes he appears. So, when he sometimes appears in this material world, the impersonalists say, oh, sometimes that Brahma Jyoti comes in the form of incarnation. No. Sometimes the Lord in the Vaikuntha, who's beyond the Brahma Jyoti, he comes to this material world in his original form, in his spiritual form. As he is, he comes. He comes in his spiritual form. It is not that the Brahma Jyoti is taking one material form and appears as incarnation. No. That is not the correct understanding. That's what the Mayavadi is saying. So, beyond the material world is the Brahma Jyoti. Beyond the Brahma Jyoti is the Vaikuntha Loka. In the Vaikuntha Loka, the Lord is present as the person, Supreme Person, eternally existing, always visible to the inhabitants of the Vaikuntha Loka, to the devotees in the spiritual planet Vaikuntha Loka, Vaikuntha Vasis. So, Prabhupada explains, just like the executive head of the state, the king, for example, he may not be visible in the kingdom in all the state government offices. But he is very much visible in the palace from where he is sitting and ruling. And he is always visible in the palace. Similarly, the Lord may not be visible in the material world where he is present in his impersonal feature as the Brahman, impersonal Brahman or Brahma Jyoti. In the material world, how can you see the Lord? As impersonal Brahman, always. How can you see always the Lord? As impersonal Brahman. But in the spiritual planet, his personal abode, he is always present as a Supreme Person. Eternally present, always. Not sometimes present, sometimes not present, no. So that is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita, Brahmano hi pratishta aham. I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. So the Brahman effulgence has got a root, has got a cause. What is that? The personality of Godhead, Krishna. So one should therefore have his ultimate realization not in the impersonal feature but in the personal feature. That's the conclusion. Beyond the impersonal feature is the personal feature, and therefore the ultimate realization should be aimed at realizing the personal feature. Brahmā, in his explanation to Narada, which is there in the 7th chapter of this canto, there also he says, there is no other cause other than the personality of Godhead, Hari or Krishna, in this material world. And Brahmā has realized this by his penance, by pleasing the Lord by devotional service, and by the Lord revealing to him at the beginning of the creation. The same revelation is given to Arjuna also by the Lord. When he spoke the Bhagavad Gita, he revealed his original two-handed form to Arjuna. When he showed the universal form, he showed the four-handed form also, and he showed the two-handed form also. So he revealed and he explained the personal form, his personal form as the ultimate cause of all causes in the Bhagavad Gita. So to to Arjuna, to Brahmā, and to all his devotees, the Lord gives this most confidential instruction about his form, spiritual form, transcendental form. And this is very confidential, as was explained by the Lord in the beginning of this section, 31st verse. Knowledge about me is very confidential and is revealed in the scriptures in a very confidential way. So therefore, even though the Brahman effulgence is the absolute truth, and the Lord is present in this world even in the form of these different elements. The Lord is present as the different demigods, because they are all functionally working as parts of the Supreme Lord in His universal form. Still, the root of the entire creation, the root of all the existence is Krishna, the personality of Godhead. And that is the instruction given in this verse. He is the root because He is the source. He exists before the creation. He is present during the creation. He remains after the entire creation is destroyed. He is beyond even the Akshara Purusha. He is beyond the Brahma Jyoti. He is the ultimate source of everyone and everything. Janmād-vaśiṣyeta. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmād-vaśiṣyeta. Dhamna svena sada nirasta puhakam. His personal abode is forever free from the influence of the material energy. So if his abode is forever free from the influence of material energy, that abode is beyond this material creation or material planets or material universes. And forever free means it is forever transcendently existing. So all these conclusions can clearly be drawn from the explanation of this verse of the Chatushloki Bhagavatam, the first verse, which is aham, evāsam, evāgre, nānyad, sad-asat, param, paścād, aham, etac, vaśiṣyeta. It is only the personality of Godhead who is speaking to Brahmā, who existed before the creation, who remains during the creation, who remains even after the creation is destroyed. Only He remains. Only He existed. So, therefore, the conclusion is that the person is the ultimate source, is the most important aspect of the realization of the absolute truth, and not the impersonal feature. The impersonal feature is always subordinate. So, therefore, the Bhagavatam also explains the root of everything, just like a tree. The root is the most important part of the tree. If you try to trace the source for the tree to get its nourishment, for a tree to get its sustenance, it's the root. Right? Any tree, if you have to water the tree, how do you supply water? You go to the root and water the root. Why? Because when you supply water to the root, then the entire tree gets nourishment. It's only to the root that all the nourishment of the tree is being supplied. Similarly, the entire material creation, where is the root of this creation? It's the personality of Godhead. So, if you want to go to the root of this entire creation, you have to approach the personality of Godhead and you have to worship that Supreme Person. If you want to respect or properly worship all the different created aspects of this world. Therefore, even though there are demigods, so many demigods who are functionally responsible for maintenance of this creation, for so many different aspects of this creation, the root of this entire creation is the personality of Godhead in His feature as Narayana or Krishna in the spiritual world. That feature in the spiritual world, beyond this material creation. Because even the Vishnu as Paramatma of the entire material energy, or Paramatma of the universe, or Paramatma of the individual soul, that is a temporary manifestation for the sake of this material creation. But the eternal feature of that Vishnu is the Narayana in the Vaikuntha Loka, who is forever present in his personal feature there. So the Vishnu here is sometimes visible, sometimes not visible. Sometimes he is active, sometimes he is not active. Sometimes he is engaged in glancing over the material energy, sometimes he is lying down in his yoga nidra, not active in the matter of creation, maintenance of destruction. So that Vishnu is actually got his original form in the spiritual world, Vaikuntha Loka as Narayana, or in the Goloka Vrindavana as Krishna. So that Krishna or Narayana, the personality of Godhead, is the original source of everything and everyone, and that is the conclusion that is drawn. We should be interested in the root of everything rather than be bewildered by the branches and leaves. That is the instruction given in this verse. So we complete this purport. We'll go on to the next verse next class. Stop here. Srimad bhagavatam ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai.